Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and I think I fixed my mic. We're gonna find out, because this is gonna be a long episode.
I was gonna say, we have the next 12 episodes to go, like, plus 2 hours. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to cap us at 2. I swear, like, in the edit, when I go edit these, I swear to God, like, I will make these 2 hours or less. I promise. There's just we can't do it. Because I get it, but we can't.
Pages and pages of notes, and I cut my notes down. Like, there were things that I looked at, I was like, we can't talk about this. We can't talk about this because we're just not going to have the time. I don't feel like doing a preamble because I think we got to get right into it. What are we talking about today?
Well, my only preamble I'll say is that we are going to do a slightly different format. I'll see if it works. If it doesn't work with like episode 2 and 3, I don't know. It didn't happen to work with episode 1, so let's just see if this format is good. And then
I think it'll work for 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if it'll work. I think it'll stop working around 3, but we'll see when we get there.
We'll see.
We're gonna start with a different format.
Right. This one, I just wanted to see if it would work this time just to make it easier for us to discuss these episodes. But today, we're talking about Andor, Season 2, Episode 1, 1 year later, an undercover mission, a sanctuary threatened, a Chandrilan wedding, and chilling Imperial plan.
So before we get into the one thing I liked about this episode and one thing I disliked, I have 2 important pieces of context that I need to provide. One for the timing of when we recorded this episode, and one for my opinion of the entire overall show.
Sure.
And how this is going to impact the way that this show played out. So the important piece of context with regards to when we're reviewing this episode is being recorded on May the 10th. We have 9 of the 12 episodes out. We have not seen how the show ends.
You'll find out tomorrow.
So we're still missing 3 episodes. You'll find out next week.
Well, for people listening, you're gonna find out tomorrow.
For people listening, you will find out tomorrow.
Right.
When we're recording it, we will find out in a couple of days. You will find out what we thought of the ending next week. But we needed to go. We delayed long enough. We needed to go ahead. I figure 9 episodes is enough to kind of see where the arc of this is going.
Right.
So keep that in mind. The second thing I want to bring up broadly overall to the series, and I do think it's really important to set this stage early, is that this series, this season 2, was a cut down version of 5 seasons worth of content. That they made season 1, and then when it came to season 2, it was supposed to be 5 seasons, and each season would cover a year. And when they made season 2, they wound up having to truncate it down to broadly doing their concepts in each arc. And I found a quote from Tony Gilroy that when I read it, I had to bring it to the podcast to talk about.
Okay.
And this is from an interview with Entertainment Weekly was where I found the quote. And I'm quoting from Tony Gilroy here directly. Quote, "The whole dynamic and the economics of everything changed between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 was, oh my God, Pearl Harbor was just bombed. Build aircraft carriers as fast as possible. We don't care. Size, scale, build it. Go Game of Thrones. Money is no object. Make it." By the time we got to season 2 and Bob Iger came back, everything had changed and everybody was belt tightening. It's hard to ask for more money when they're laying off people at Disney. And we were like, wow, man, we built half an aircraft carrier. We'd like to finish it. We made as many concessions as we could, but it was still a huge gamble on their part to keep going and still a huge ask. So thank you, Disney, and thank you, Lucasfilm. It was a lot of tough conversations and a lot of anxiety, but really, in the end, they really backed our play. End quote. And I will add that Iger's last name was added by Entertainment Weekly for clarity.
Oh, okay.
So that is something that's important, I think, to keep in mind overall throughout the series. We talked about how The Acolyte went over budget.
Right.
And didn't get greenlit for a second season. We talked about in our celebration episode how there's no live action coming in 2026. That we only have the Maul show, and the next live action show we know about is Ahsoka in 2027. And I think this quote is very important context for why Andor is the way that it is. That they let Andor finish the main story that it was trying to tell. And I will stress that main story.
Right.
The main plot that they wanted to tell with Cassian and Mon Mothma. They told that story. And I think that that's going to be really important for how particularly the middle part of the season plays out. But it does seem like Gilroy explicitly states that when Bob Iger came back, they quit making all these shows because they were dumping money into Disney. I was right. They were dumping money into Disney Plus, and the more time went on, the more they started cutting back and cutting back. I've said for years that the worst thing to happen to Star Wars in a long time was that investor call in 2021, where they dumped all those shows on us. And then they had so many shows and nothing to announce. Couldn't do anything for the next 5 years. There was no surprises. There was one, which was Skeleton Crew, but that now it seems like under Bob Iger, they're taking a step back, which I do think is the right call. But man, does it suck
Right.
for some of these shows. But that's something I felt I had to discuss before we got into it, because
Sure.
it's going to impact a lot of the secondary plots.
Well, that's gonna lead me into my what was one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you didn't.
One thing I really liked about this episode, I loved I'm going to just call out specifically the one shot when they're on Chandrilla and everyone's arriving at the wedding. One shots are my favorite thing ever. If you get like a long tracking shot that just continues and continues and continues, it's like my favorite thing of all time. It's incredible where it's just following Mon Mothma around. And like, because they had to build the whole set, the actors have to be on point. Genevieve O'Reilly has to be on point. Every actor she interacts with has to be on point. The camera operator has to be on point, because that's probably a steady cam. That is not on a dolly. That is attached to somebody and they are moving it. The extras have to be on point. That random senator she talks to has to be on point. Every single person has to be at their A game to pull off a shot like that. And it was an utterly, utterly beautiful shot. The one thing I didn't like about this episode, I think we're back to the stories not really quite interconnecting yet. I think the benefit of dropping episodes 1 through 3 is that the stories do ultimately connect by the end of 3. Even the Mon Mothma plot kind of gets worked in, and I said that she really has nothing to do with Cassian's plot in season 1. She's just kind of there. But I think that when I was doing my notes for this one, it was really hard to tell, like, how are all these scenes eventually going to connect? And especially if you don't know what the Gorman massacre is and you don't know that's where we're going. So I think we're still there. I think we're in season 1 there. I don't know whether or not I want to talk about this now or whether or not I want to talk about this later. Some of these plot lines, I struggle to see how they would have filled an entire season with it. If the Cassian plot line had lasted for more than 2 episodes, I would probably have screamed. Because 2 episodes was a lot even for this plot line.
Yeah.
What about you, Bradley? One thing you liked about this episode and one thing you didn't.
So the one thing I really liked about this episode was the costuming on Chandrilla. So any kind of attire that they wore, I loved like the very clearly Japanese aesthetic of like especially the men's clothing where it's like very kimono. Like I don't know why it just looks so good. Like everything they wear on Chandrilla, like it looks so expensive. And I love the way that just the art department, the costuming department, everybody just did with that. It just looked gorgeous. I just loved everything about Chandrilla. So one thing I did not like about this episode, and this is going to be the one thing I did not like about the first episode of every single arc of this show, is in the very beginning of every episode, they say the title of the episode and then, or like the year of the episode and then the title. The year says BBY4 instead of 4BBY. And that pisses me the fuck off. And I know on Wikipedia it says that both are interchangeable and you can use them however you want. However, that is incorrect. You can only say 4BBY. I'm putting my foot down. You cannot interchange them. You cannot do that. And I hate it so much and it pisses me off every time I see it.
I would like to formally welcome our audience to the Nitpick Show, where we're going to nitpick Andor because that's the only way you can really find things to. There's plenty of things to critique about the show, and we will get there. But like, sometimes you gotta nitpick to find something.
I know, and trust me, there's other things I didn't like about the arc as a whole. Like, but we'll get into that at the end. I think of the 3 episodes. Once we get to the end, we'll do like a final like on episode 3 we'll do like a final, like, how did you feel about how this arc played out, right?
Because they're pretty
Um,
much a movie.
right.
Like,
They're all
and
little movie. Yeah.
part of my thing is like if they had released, I would be much more critical of the first two or so episodes. It doesn't seem like these plots are connecting. I
Right.
would be much more critical about that if I hadn't gotten the 3 episode thing. Actually, let's talk about the 3 episode thing because I have some
Okay.
opinions about that.
Sure. Let's talk about that first.
So they did drop all 3 of these first episodes at once, and they've done that for every arc. Disney, Tony Gilroy did say this is a Disney decision.
Right.
I have heard the best theory I have heard as to why they did this was they wanted to get it out all out in time for Emmy season
That sounds
because
right.
they really want this show to go for some Emmys. But I will say my experience has been mixed with the 3 episode thing.
Okay.
I do love having it all to be
Right.
able to watch it because I think it makes the content better. I think that the actual experience of watching the show, I think the show was written to be binge watched. And I think being able to binge watch 3 episodes has made the enjoyment of actually watching the show better. On the flip side, I get off of work at 5 p.m.
Okay.
I get home at 6 p.m. If I sit down and play Andor from beginning to end without ever getting up to do anything, I get done at 9 o'clock.
It's
Because I have to eat food
right.
and like do stuff, that's an entire evening.
It takes
That's
away your
basically
whole evening.
6
Yeah.
p.m. to 10 p.m. That's a whole evening.
100%.
And I get that not everybody is in the unfortunate position I am, where you have to live in Star Wars spaces. And so if you don't consume a thing immediately, you will get spoiled for it.
100%.
It was annoying to have to watch an entire 3 hour movie and like get it done and get it out. So that was my experience with the 3 episode drop. We are not covering all 3 episodes at once on this podcast.
Yeah, clearly. Well, mostly because I think this is what kind of leads into what you said about the 3 episodes. I think the weakness of the 3 episode drop only is weakened more by the runtime of every episode because I think they're actually too long for a 3 episode drop. If they had been 30 minutes each, I could say that it's fine. You know what I mean? Yes, it's an hour and 30 minutes of your time. However, an hour and 30 minutes is different than 3 hours. I mean, this one is 54 minutes by itself. I didn't even look at the other two. The problem is that's too long. I mean, I'm not saying like in a normal situation, like watching a show, I'm never going to complain about longer Star Wars. However, in this situation, because you're trying to binge watch 3 episodes, trying to binge watch 50-minute episodes is like that's not easy to do. And I don't
No, and
think
especially
it
when we
works.
get into like the third arc
The
or
third
the
arc,
second arc the second arc I think is the one that every single one of them was 55 minutes long.
yeah, it's too long. And
It's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
It's a
it's too
lot.
much.
Yeah, like I said, I have very mixed feelings on it because I do think
Right,
viewing all 3 makes the art more palatable,
right.
but it also is a huge time commitment.
It really
It's a
was.
huge, and especially this is also important context. I'm on Pacific time. I'm lucky.
It's
It
made for
drops at 6
Pacific
p.m.
time,
for
right?
me.
Yeah.
It's made for Pacific time. Bradley's on Eastern.
No, I was up
That
till
motherfucker's
midnight
not
every
getting
night.
dropped. Yeah, not getting
Yeah.
dropped till 9.
So Charles,
Yes, let's talk about Andor.
the episode always begins with the year, or at least the arcs always begin with the year that this arc takes place in. This particular arc takes place in 4 BBY. Would you like
Yes.
to know a few things that were going on during the same time as these couple episodes?
To quote our friend Steph over at Dark Side Divas, quoting the movie My Cousin Vinny, I would love to hear this.
So some of the most interesting things that I saw on the 4 BBY list were this is the 15th anniversary of the Empire. Takes place during this time. Ezra Bridger constructs his first lightsaber, and the Grand Inquisitor dies after a duel with Kanan Jarrus. Spoilers for Rebels, I guess, but there you go.
Okay, there we go.
But basically, Rebels season 1 is going on during this
The
arc.
back half of
Right.
Okay, interesting. So that
Mhm.
almost kind of seems to confirm a lingering question that we had about Andor season 1,
Right.
because it does seem like the Kessel that they're referring to in Andor season 1 is the incident in Solo, not the incident in Rebels. And the PORD went into effect prior to the events of Rebels because of what we see in Spark of Rebellion.
Okay.
So that does
Yeah.
kind of seem to answer It's not official, like an official timeline, but it does
Sure.
kind of seem to confirm that if you're watching in chronological order, it goes Andor season one and then the first season of Star Wars Rebels.
Right. So they are all relatively taking place at the same time. Let's get into what I'm calling our first section, an undercover mission.
Yeah, so we're going to break this down by plot line instead of
Right.
trying to go scene by scene with this episode.
Because the cutting and it's just like otherwise I'd have to spend a microsecond on Bix's nightmare and I'm like, all right, let's not do that. You know what I mean? So let's just do each arc. We'll start with Cassian because obviously he's the hero of our story. Section one is an
He's the
undercover mission.
protagonist of our story.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry.
And
I should.
speaking as the guy who writes Henry Thompson, protagonist and hero not the same thing.
There you go.
He is the
So
protagonist of our story who's going to do some very questionable things over the course of the show.
in for BBY, Nia, a technician at a test facility, secretly helps Cassian steal a TIE Avenger for the rebellion. As he attempts to fly the unfamiliar ship, he is discovered by Imperials and forced into a chaotic escape. Later, he lands his stolen TIE on a forest planet and tries to find his contact Porco. Unfortunately, he is captured by wary rebels who mistake him for an Imperial pilot. Tensions rise within the group, and it boils over into chaos. They all begin shooting at each other.
So I know that all the ship nerds out there were having a field day
Oh, were
when
they?
this episode came out. So I couldn't find like a episode by episode trivia guide, but I did find a trivia article covering the first three episodes. So I'm going to be
Okay,
referring back to it several times
sure.
because it is my source for a couple of pieces of information. I am not a ship nerd, so this was really helpful to me. I know there are people out there that are ship nerds. I am not one of them. I am very bad at technical designations. But the ship that Cassian is stealing is a TIE Avenger prototype. Quoting the StarWars.com Andor Trivia Guide Week 1 news article, quote, the TIE Avenger was first featured in the 1994 TIE Fighter computer game from LucasArts, end quote. It is also inspired by Kylo Ren's TIE Whisperer from Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So the TIE fighter that Rey destroys on Pisana partially inspired this.
Nice.
Bradley, let's talk about this planet.
Okay.
Sinar, the name Sinar comes up
Okay.
on the screen telling us where we are. And I screamed.
Okay.
And my boyfriend, who was watching these episodes with me, was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He actually audibly said that aloud when we watched the episode. Because I was like, oh my God, it's Sinar. And he went, what the fuck is wrong with you? So I then had to pause the episode and explain to him why I had that screamed that.
Okay.
No planet named Sinar has appeared in Star Wars before this.
Sure.
And Sinar is in big letters. So I assumed that Sinar was not the name of the planet that they
Okay.
were on. I assumed they were
Yeah.
on some sort of asteroid or moon
Right. And maybe the facility is just called Sinar.
because Sinar historically is not a planet.
Okay.
Sinar is a company
Oh, okay.
called Sinar Fleet Systems. And at least in Legends, I need to check if this is still canon because I don't. Oh, nope, he is still canon. Sinar Fleet Systems is owned by a guy named Ryth Sinar. Ryth Sinar is a much bigger player in Legends than he is in canon. In canon, he's only appeared in the novel Tarkin, the novel Aftermath's End, and the comic Lando 2. And none of these appearances in any of this media are direct appearances. He's only ever mentioned off screen in canon. In Legends, he played a much bigger role, still was only mentioned or is only ever seen physically one place, and that was the novel
Got it.
Rogue Planet. Other than that, Ryth Sinar has never appeared on screen or on page or on comic panel or anything beyond that. He's a very secretive dude. But he runs Sinar Fleet Systems, who builds a lot of ships. And
Right.
so when I saw the name Sinar, I freaked out because I thought we were bringing Ryth Sinar back into canon. I didn't realize he'd already been brought back into canon because this motherfucker does not show up anywhere.
Okay.
But that's why the name of this planet is a little confusing to me.
Right.
Because I'm like, are they on a planet named after the company that's named after the guy? Are they on a random test facility on a random moon? What's going on here? I don't know. They're not going to tell us and we move on.
Well, Wikipedia seems to think the planet is called 73.
Okay, well, there's my answer
So
then.
there you go. I mean, it's for all intents and purposes. I believe they're correct. I don't know, but sure. Planet 73 sounds good to me.
Reith Sinar definitely seems like the type of dude that owns more than one planet.
It seems like that's what's going on here. It's like one of those like we just have a multitude of them and we just didn't have time to name them all because what's the point if we're just using them for testing facilities or whatever. So there's no population on these planets. It's just science places or whatever. So
Yeah, they've dropped,
yeah.
it's Antarctica. They've dropped random research
That's
bases
exactly what this
everywhere.
place is. This is Antarctica in space.
But because Imperial collaborators are allowed unchecked corporate capitalism, Reith Sinar can do whatever he wants, because at least in Legends, he was besties with Wilif Tarkin. We also see very briefly in the background when Cassian is waiting for Nia to show up, troopers from Vandor, from Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Yes, the snow trooper, or not a traditional snow trooper, but the what
Snow-ish troopers.
snowish trooper. Yeah, whatever they call. I think they're called range troopers, actually.
There are
Am I
stormtrooper
crazy?
nerds out there who I side eye a little bit.
Yes, they're called range
If
troopers.
you are specifically an Imperial nerd, this does not mean I think you are a bad person. I have plenty of friends who are big Empire nerds who are wonderful, delightful human beings. However, just know that if I am meeting you for the first time and your specific Star Wars area of expertise is the Empire, I am side-eyeing you a little bit until you can prove to me that you are not a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Just know that. I say this as someone who has several entire shelves dedicated to
right.
rows of Lego Stormtroopers.
See,
Now, I
there you
also
go.
have shelves dedicated to the Rebellion, but I also have shelves dedicated to Lego Stormtroopers because I have a lot of them. So you and I ran into a bit of a problem, Bradley.
What's that?
Do you want to know how many cast members are in this episode?
Okay, so I solved the problem
Did you?
because there's too many. So,
Do you know how many? Because I have the
uh,
number
what's the
of
number? Because
credit.
I didn't even
There
bother
are
counting.
57 credited people on
Nope,
IMDb.
no, we can't do that.
If I were to just go down to the people who speak who we have never seen before,
Right.
that number is going to be like 10 people.
I apologize to all the actors moving forward in this show. However, I can't name all of you. There's literally so many, and there's always new ones. Pretty much every arc, there's about 10 or 15 new people, and I want to. I honestly, right now, I only have so many, and I didn't even do one for each mini arc, which is what I'm going to call it, of our segments. I didn't even have new actors in every sec. Have them in almost every single one. Once I got down to the Imperial section, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like,
Once you
there's too
see
many.
the Imperial boardroom and it's like 12 people we've never seen before, and
Yeah, I'm like,
basically
no.
five or six of them, it's at least six of them have speaking lines
Right. And that's just
that
too
we
many
have
for
never
us.
seen. We can't.
No.
I'm sorry. I highly encourage everyone to go to IMDb and look. It's a lot
Right.
of that guys. It's a lot of British actors. We can't do it. There's a couple I know, Bradley, that you're going to talk about
Right.
uh,
A few that I
later
have.
in
I
this
may
arc.
bring them up, but that's about it. Yeah.
I have to shout out Rochelle Diedrichs, who plays Nia in these scenes, because she does not have a lot of credits. She only has six on IMDb. One of them is a live performance of a theatrical performance, but she knocks this scene out of the park. She absolutely knocks her early scene out of the park, and keep an eye on her
Yeah. Okay.
as an actress.
Yeah, I think
So
what I'll say
I
is
just had to shout
we'll
her
do
out.
special shout outs occasionally, or if I deem somebody that we need to talk about, I'll probably bring them up. And if you randomly think of somebody, you're like, oh yeah, I have this person's thing
There's
because
a tiny
they're
handful of
whatever. Yeah.
people that I'm like, you deserve special mention for absolutely
Absolutely.
nailing the scene, going above and beyond the Call of Duty for the scene that you have.
I agree.
And she has a lot of real talent that I'm very excited to see.
I was gonna bring her up because actually, so Neo was such an interesting character to me because I don't know what it is about her acting, but like when Cassian was talking to her, she was doing this thing where she's like, they told me I couldn't look at you. Basically, she's like not looking at him through most of the scene, and then when her friend or coworker, whoever it is, shows up, like they like somehow she like breaks character all of a sudden, and like or like she's able to switch her characterization, like where she's like super nervous and like, oh my God, I can't talk to Cassian, and then all of a sudden her coworker shows up and she's just like, oh hey girl, what's going on? Like, oh I'm just talking to this hottie over here, like, and it's great. Like I loved that. That was so good.
Yeah, and Did you ever take any acting classes as part of your major?
No.
Because I had to take them as part of my first one. And one of the things that was drilled over and over and over to us in our heads is that acting is a series of choices. You have to learn to make a choice as your character because every single action that you take as a real person is making a choice. And acting is learning to make choices as the character, to embody the character so physically that you understand the choices that they make when they speak in the script and do the stage direction in the script, but also imbue them with so many choices themselves. As writers, any sort of writer, right? Whether it's stage, whether it's screen, whether it's TV, whether it's anything, there's a delicate line that you have to walk in between writing what you need to convey the character on the page and not writing too much because you don't want to dictate every single action that the character takes because you want to give the actors room to make those choices because building a character is a collaborative process. And what Rochelle Diedrichs does so well as Nia in this one scene is you can see her making choice after choice after choice after choice after choice in how Nia interacts with Cassian, how Nia interacts with her friend, and also I think strength speaks to the strength of Tony Gilroy's writing because Tony Gilroy wrote these 3 episodes that she had the ability to do that. And I think I forget the name of the director, but you'll tell me at the end. The director guiding her through these scenes. And that's something to look out for when we look at this piece of media, and particularly Andor does this really, really well, is really all of the characters and all the scenes being a collaboration between the writer, the director, the actor, the cinematography, all of it coming together to make these moments, which I think is really cool.
No, I actually really love this character too because she brings up like what's going to happen in the rest of the show is we're going to get to see different parts of what happens during fascism, like all these different points and all these different players and how those characters have to deal with this oppressive government. And we're going to see all these different aspects of that. And Nia's character is a very interesting one because it's only for a second. I think it's like only one line where she says, I've had fun here, working here.
She loves her
She
job.
loves her job. She loves being a part of this thing that's like working and she comes to work every day. She has friends and she might not see certain aspects of what she's doing. And that's what's so interesting about her character. Like she can only see what's in front of her. Essentially, she can only see her day-to-day job. She can't see how it's affecting other people in this government. And I love that aspect of this, that she is just so like, I know that they're doing atrocities somewhere else. I'm not a part of that because what I'm doing here clearly is just whatever. We're just testing stuff. But in the long run, maybe the things that we're testing will be used to commit atrocities and et cetera, right? So I love that she recognizes that and she's trying to do something about it, even though her comfort level is I like my job and I like what I'm doing and I'm happy, but I'm willing to give that away because other people may not be happy.
Yeah, and one of the things that is brought up over and over again when we're talking about historical fascism and historical, like, particularly the Nazis. Like, we're going to talk about the Nazis a lot in this episode for a later other story arc, but I am going to bring them up here specifically because something that emerged through the Nuremberg trials and the post World War II world was really examining something that was termed by a reporter that was working on the Nuremberg trials as the banality of evil. So the idea that not all evil is the guy from the Bad Batch, the mad scientist who is experimenting on people. Not every act of evil is Grand Moff Tarkin sitting on the Death Star blowing up planet. Right? Sometimes evil is boring. Sometimes evil is small and just doing an office job. Sometimes evil is filing paperwork. And Nia has this tiny job that she clearly has fun at, but she has also realized she needs to do something. And I love this exchange that Cassian has with her, where we're seeing Cassian kind of become more of a leader because he tells her, like, basically, it's uncomfortable to realize this. But what you have to remember is that even this tiny act of helping Cassian steal this TIE fighter, which as of recording, we don't know what happens to this woman. She needs a 12-minute head start and Cassian gives her one. So hopefully she survived, but we don't know.
Right. You'll never
But
know.
he tells her like you're coming home to yourself. You're finally like putting aside that you're comfortable here. You're putting aside that you're able to ignore this, that you're able to ignore what you're doing. And it's not easy for her because she hasn't had time to complete that full evolution as a character before it was necessary. But when push came to shove, she did help Cassian. And one of the themes of this overall show is going to be tiny acts of rebellion. Tiny people who are not going to be remembered by the history books, who are not going to steal the Death Star plans, who are not going to blow up the Death Star. None of this. It's just something as simple as a technician working at a Sinar fleet base deciding that this prototype is too dangerous for the Empire to have and allowing the rebels to steal it. And we will talk about my favorite character in the entire series, the Gorman Bellhop Twink, when we get to the Gorman Bellhop Twink. But that is something that will definitely come up. And Nia's our first example of what, not only showing that in the show, but what that is, what that looks like, and really driving home that when you are living under an oppressive state that is actively perpetuating abuses on the population, something as simple and quiet as you didn't see anything.
Exactly.
You don't know anything about if the evil authorities ask, you didn't see it. You don't know anything. Something as simple as that can have massive ramifications. This show is really good.
I know. I'm like, I
I'm gonna
want to
have
keep
my
talking about it, but I'm
criticisms
like,
of
we
it.
gotta keep
We
going because
gotta keep
otherwise we're
moving.
never
We
gonna
gotta
get
keep
through even
moving.
just Cassian's story. Like,
Oh, Lord in heaven, how long have we been recording? Jesus Christ.
I know. So we gotta keep moving.
We have a new composer I do want to
Oh,
shout out.
okay.
The music is very cool. It is using some of Nicholas Bertel's themes, but there is a new composer. His name is Brandon Roberts.
Nice.
Is our new composer for the second season. My next note, which I just have to read verbatim, is the sequence where Cassian flies the TIE fighter backwards into
Oh,
the
yes.
hangar. And my note is me flying the Falcon at Galaxy's Edge.
Womp womp.
Do you
But
disagree?
no, but it's
Guy
so
who
funny you
has
say that
flown the
actually.
Falcon with me?
No, because it's just like that. Everything's reversed or everything's like the wrong thing that you think that it's gonna inverted controls or whatever, and you're just like, okay, obviously if I push forward, I'm gonna go forward. And he's like, no, that's gonna make me go backward. I love that. Like that it also I knew that was gonna happen the second he did it. I was just like, they drummed it up so dramatically. He was like, systems check, everything's ready to go. And then it was just like, wow. I loved it.
The last thing I
Um,
want to shout out
yeah.
from the opening scene of Cassian's part of this arc is that the starfighters that are chasing him, I know it is the Grand Inquisitor's TIE fighter because that's how the Lego set was marketed.
Oh,
It
okay.
is the TIE Advanced prototype that was in Rebels season 1.
Oh, okay. I'm looking that up now just so I can see it. So yeah, it's like the curved
It's like the
look
curved, this is
versus
a
the yeah.
prototype
Got
that's
it.
very similar to the unique prototype that Vader will use.
And these are the wings that fold in, right? I think.
No, this is a earlier version of the wing. Vader's kind of fold inwards.
No, no, I know, but I'm saying when it lands, the wings are the ones that these are the ones that fold up on itself. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I believe that is correct. I am not a ship nerd, so I don't
I'm
know.
not either, so that's why I'm not gonna check. But somebody will and they'll be like, you're right.
Somebody will.
Um
Somebody will come into my DMs and be like, "You are absolutely correct. It is this, this, and this." It's either somebody that's a ship nerd or somebody that's watched Rebels way too many fucking times.
Right. Okay. So he gets away and then he goes to random forest slash jungle planet number 7 that we'll talk about at a later time in episode 3. He's looking for his contact name Porco.
Okay, so Porco is probably a reference to the
Unrelated to
Studio
somebody
Ghibli
else.
movie Porco Rosso.
Okay, I thought it was like they were trying to do some weird thing where it's like the son of Porkins, and I was like, okay, how many people are named Pork in Star Wars? Like, let's be
No,
realistic.
I think
Porco Rosso. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Porco
that makes sense.
Rosso
Rosso, yeah.
is
It doesn't say anything about it anywhere, but I just assumed because he's like a flying person, right? In that movie, a pilot.
yes, he's a pilot and infamously says the line in the movie, "Better a pig than a fascist," because he's a pig in the movie.
Oh, Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
So I think this has never been confirmed. This is purely speculation.
Sure.
I think this is a reference to that.
This is something we have to corner Tony in like a small alley and just be like, "Hey, when
Tony
you wrote
Gilroy, if you want to come on the Gold Squadron Gays podcast and talk to us,
yeah, we'll ask you every question that we can possibly think of that the major news outlets are afraid to ask, and this is one of them."
yes, like was that Gorman Twink bellhop in love with Cassian? The
Um,
Gorman Twink bellhop that has a wife that's mentioned once and never gets brought up again.
so when he's looking for Porco, unfortunately, he does not find Porco. He finds a bunch of what we're calling rebels instead. These rebels, there's way too many to name. I'm not going to name them all, but two of them are important, and I will name them for obvious reasons that are going to become clear. So we have our first one. These are kind of like the two de facto leaders of the rebel group,
There's
if you
two
will.
like factions inside this faction and,
Correct.
of
So yeah.
rebels that has captured Cassian because they think he's an Imperial test pilot.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two of them. One is named Gertis, and the other one is named Barty. Now, Gertis is played by Sam Gilroy. I'll guess how they're related.
I don't have to guess. I know that's Tony
Yes,
Gilroy's son
correct.
playing one of these guys.
Playing one of these guys. But Tony Gilroy is not his only Star Wars connection. I thought this was very interesting.
I mean, he's also connected to Dan Gilroy.
Well, not that. Okay. Yes, obviously by blood, he is related to other people. But Star Wars connection, he has a totally separate, unrelated Star Wars connection
Really?
through sheer, I don't know. I either it's fate or I don't know the timeline of when Rogue One and Solo came out. But Sam Gilroy was in a little movie called Beautiful Creatures, where he played the ancestor of main character Alden Enric, or however you say his last name, who was young Han Solo in Solo, a
Yes.
Star Wars story. So there's your kind of already Star Wars connection. Just like fun fate that they were together in that movie. The other rebel character that I'm going to be mentioning is Benjamin Norris, who's playing Barty. I know him from like Superstore and Abbott Elementary. He's mostly in like comedies, but it's funny that he's in this. Why is he in this, you must ask? Well, that's because he is married to Carolyn Gilroy. Her father is John Gilroy, who is sibling to Dan Gilroy, his twin brother, and Tony Gilroy. So
Yep.
Benjamin is Tony's nephew in law, right? That's how we figured it out.
But Bradley, why would Tony Gilroy cast his son and his nephew in law in these specific roles?
I'm sure there's a fun little anecdote that that Tony has told us about why he did this.
Okay, so the reason that it's Tony Gilroy's son and his nephew-in-law in these roles for these two episodes are because I am truncating the story. I don't have the quote up in front of me because I was looking up something else that's about to be important in this sequence. But the story goes that Tony Gilroy attended a Christmas dinner and it got rowdy and everyone was drunk and it turned into an argument between these two. And so Tony Gilroy went away and wrote this leftist infighting sequence specifically based on these two arguing. He doesn't say what they were arguing about, but he did say that they got into a very heated and rowdy discussion
Sure.
at this drunken Christmas dinner. And then he turned around and cast them in these roles.
I love it.
So imagine being so rowdy at Christmas that you get canonized into Star Wars, reenacting the same argument that you had at Christmas dinner while you were drunk.
I love it.
I love it. I love it so much. I actually need to talk because several of my notes can be condensed as what's going on in these argument between these two, because
Right.
we see that there's no unit cohesion in this group. They have these two guys that are basically jockeying for being in charge. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know who these guys are at
Right.
first. But also everybody's got an opinion. There's no chain of command. There's no opset at all. Cassian figures out real fucking quickly who these guys are. And the flip side is they never learn who Cassian was working for or what he was doing. All they know is information that they presently have by looking at him. That he had a contact who was here. He was supposed to hand the ship off to. He claims to be working for the rebellion, but he won't say who. Meanwhile, these people are just, he can figure out real fucking easily who they
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
They have no operational security. And part of the reason this plot line exists, part of why this is here, is to show that at this point, these cells are not ready for prime time.
right.
They are not ready for actual war against the Empire. That this needs to be contrasted with how the rebellion is going to be portrayed in the third arc, to where it's very regimented. There is a very clear chain of command. There is very clear how everything is operating. That is part of why this plot line exists, is to show this. And I also think it's very interesting to juxtapose this plot line, because this plot line is happening, a lot of the like arguing that's taking place between them is happening intercut with the Imperial boardroom that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I think that's deliberate. That's an intentional choice. We see the rebels squabbling and fighting. We see the Empire having a very calm meeting about perpetrating a genocide. It's crazy.
And this was, out of all the stories, of course, I've told you this. This is my least favorite plot line
You did.
of the
You did
entire
tell me.
arc in general. Watching it solo in just this one episode, I don't think it's that bad. Watching it in the arc as a whole, I see why it's a little weaker. But when I was watching it just this episode by itself and then being like, okay, now I have to wait a week until the next episode kind of thing, it's not that bad. My problem with that, though, saying that it's not that bad is, well, where is it boiling up to? Like, what is it leading up to, right? And unfortunately, spoiler alert, nothing.
No,
I
Cassian ultimately ends up
Right.
escaping. And I
Just
feel
leaving.
like this was like, we were meant to see this group of rebels again. Like, you couldn't make this entire plot line in these two episodes, because it's really only the first two. I don't think you could stretch this out for a whole season, but you
Well,
could see these guys again.
if we were gonna play the game of this first arc as being season two as a whole, right? And like how would you stretch out certain plot lines? I could see this being like Cassian has to use this like this season or whatever is like or this arc is him gaining the trust of these guys and then eventually becoming their de facto leader, right? Like that is the ultimate arc of what I could see it becoming. And then he helps them by like inspiring them, and then they become a very prolific little cell group that eventually Luthen can use to do other things, right? So I feel like that's theoretically where this could have been as like a season arc for Cassian, like just becoming a leader would be his ultimate end of this arc. However, because we're truncating this into 3 episodes, it just feels like he's just a passenger in this show and he doesn't have any kind of he doesn't do anything, unfortunately. He does try to kind of, you will see it during this episode especially, or he kind of like he's being held captive, or like he's being kind of held away from the group as they're having a meeting, and
Mhm.
they got the dumb guy watching him, and he's trying to like be like, oh yeah, you're the dumb guy, like let me get you to like run away with me and then we can escape, like these guys are dumb, they don't know what they're doing, right? If you want to get out of here, you want to get some food, like let's go, like, and that ultimately doesn't work. But it's funny that Cassian tries multiple ways throughout this arc to to get everybody to either turn on each other or to get himself out, because ultimately that's his goal.
Cassian is operating on such a higher level than these people that it's kind of insane.
It is. I love
Like
it.
the way he manages to get out, I'll just say here, he manages to get out of them that this is the remains of the Maya Pei Brigade. We have heard of Maya Pei before. She was mentioned throughout season 1 of Andor. She's a neo-Republican. She is mentioned all the way back in Narkina 5 was the first time she is
Oh wow.
mentioned. That she's also mentioned in Saw Gerrera's big long speech,
Mm,
where he's basically like, fuck everybody else. I'm the only one with clarity of purpose. Yeah, she's mentioned there.
got it.
I'm just scrolling through because my notes are in order of how I took them. So I'm having to physically go through all of them as we go through each arc and try to find the notes that are relevant. I will say my sort of final note for the entire sequence, because they do turn on each other.
Right.
Shots end up being fired. They shoot the pilot. They have one pilot, and the
One
whole
pilot.
thing
Right.
going in the background of this episode is debating that the one pilot doesn't know how to fly the TIE Avenger. And
Right.
so they're arguing about whether or not they're going to have Cassian do it, whether Cassian's going to teach the pilot to do it, how they're going to make Cassian teach the pilot to do it. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the episode, the guy shoots the pilot.
I love it so much.
So now they have no pilot. And my final note for this section is so continues leftist infighting simulator, because that is a meme that I have seen going around. And I just think it's so funny.
I love it. Section 2, A Sanctuary Threat. Farm world of Mineral. Vic suffers from nightmares about Dr. Gorst. Brasso, Willman, and B2 all live together with a woman named Talia, and they discuss the lingering emotional trauma 1 year after the events on Ferrix. Later, Bix and Willman work on an irrigation tower in a crop field. Bix notices Bila, a young woman interested in Willman, but their moment is interrupted by an Imperial ship arriving. At the homestead, Brazo meets with the others to discuss an upcoming Imperial supply census, an audit of the workers on the planet, and Bix expresses worry about visa checks, and Willman uses the radio to see if Cassian is checked in.
Mina Rao is new.
Okay.
We have not seen Mina Rao before.
I did incorrectly think that this was Lothal when we saw the trailer.
Yes, it's not. It's a different
This
planet.
is just Farm World.
And the creepy motherfucker doctor from season 1 is back.
Love that.
Which was a surprise to me. I didn't think they were going to bring him back, but they bring him back in a very significant way in the first half of this season.
Right, I love it. Yeah, because he seems like he's such a one-off thing, like in the first season, and then it's just like, oh no, like there's lingering problems here with this guy, and I love it.
We're going to actually deal with this.
I fucking love that.
I would like to talk about this wheat field.
Okay.
Because this was a fucking problem for production. So I'm going to quote from the Andor trivia guide here. Quote, the fields of Mina Rao were an ancient rye planted specifically for Andor Season 2 in Watlington, Oxfordshire, and took a full year to grow. Due to the SAG-AFTRA strikes of 2023, the crop had to be harvested and placed in sheets of polystyrene by the Greens team, allowing the outdoor location sets to be reconstructed on Pinewood's 007 stage in early 2024. So they grew the wheat fields.
Right.
Then the strike happened. Specifically the SAG-AFTRA strike. Because if you remember, the writer's strike happened first, and the show was filming.
Right.
Because Tony Gilroy completed all of his work that he needed to do. And then the SAG-AFTRA people went on strike. And at that point, the show had to stop filming. They had already filmed some of this. So they then had to basically vacuum seal the wheat and rebuild it on a on a stage.
That's crazy.
Which is absolutely insane. Also, from the trivia guide, the mobile house that they're in did have to be, it's a full interior and exterior. They had to disassemble it and relocate it twice, first due to rain, and then again due to the strike.
That's production for you.
Yep. Oh, the production on these Mina Rao scenes are crazy. I do think it is very good to see Bix doing mechanic stuff.
Yeah, because I feel like we lost
that in season 1.
Yeah, because I think it's only really in the first episode when we first meet her. She's working on the speeder, I think, for like a hot second.
She's a mechanic.
Right.
That's her thing. She's a mechanic.
And we lose that throughout the first season because we're like, oh, because she just doesn't do anything after that. Like we don't ever see her truly working on anything ever again. She's always like running or talking to somebody or whatever, right? Like
or being tortured or being held in a prison cell in a hotel.
Right.
And it is good, particularly with like what happens to her over the first 6 episodes, that it is good to see her at least at the beginning of these episodes, like she's doing her mechanic stuff again, because that's where she's comfortable. And she's going to move away from that and towards like different things for the rebellion, but it's worth remembering this is her skill set. This is our first mention of visas, I'm pretty sure, directly in Star Wars. Being able to move planet to planet has always been restricted under the Empire, but there's going to be a running theme in season 2 of Andor, and that is subtlety is for cowards.
Sure.
And they directly mention visas in the scene where they're fixing the vaporator or the whatever the thing is that they're fixing.
Some kind of watering thing. Yeah.
Yep.
No, it's so interesting because they get more into it obviously in the next couple episodes. So we'll save more of our bigger talks about it later on. But yeah, the unregistered laborers or whatever is like very important to the work that is done on this planet. So it's very interesting that they would bring that up on this show.
They will bring up visas, and in the next scene on this planet, they will directly refer to themselves as undocumented workers.
Right.
That they are undocumented farm labor operating without a visa, subtlety is for cowards.
I love it. I
Uh,
also want to mention Willman and his girlfriend, or girl he's interested in, I should say, because I don't think they ever quite work
they
out
don't
in
quite
this
get
arc.
there. They don't
Um,
quite get there.
my favorite part is where Bix asks him if he's thirsty, and then this girl shows up, and it is the funniest shit I've ever seen in a Star Wars.
Wilman Pack turning into like James Bond style with a new girlfriend every arc
Every arc,
is so funny to
so
me.
funny. Oh my God, it's so
That
funny,
is
and I
not
love
where
that
I
for
would have
him.
expected this character to go.
No, because he seems like such like a, I mean, not nothing to his actor or anything like that, but like he was such a minimal character in the first season to where it was like, oh, he's gonna get killed like in this first arc. Like I
Yeah,
thought he was
Tony
easily gonna
Tony
die.
Gilroy has talked about like they shove him on the shuttle at the end of season one and they didn't know what they were going to do with him. But they were
Right.
like, well, this kid threw the bomb. We got to get him out of there. So they threw him on the shuttle. Jezzy, who's also on the shuttle, does not show up in this season. We don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I thought would happen to him theoretically, right? Like I
Yeah,
thought,
I thought he would
oh,
just disappear, but
he's
nope,
just a
he's
nobody
here.
character. They're not going to ever deal with him ever again. The way that they have built out his character, at least on this show, is crazy how much more A, screen time he gets, and B, the character has gotten so much growth over the next three arcs that we get to see. Like,
His arc in the third episode block is incredible, and I'm
yeah,
super excited. I was concerned about where they were going with this character in the second arc. I had some real problem
yeah,
with the second arc, and we'll get there, but they brought him back around in the third arc. And this is why it's really important. This is why partially why I don't like talking about shows as they're airing and why we delayed as long as we could with Andor.
right,
I don't like talking about shows as they're airing. I know we're going to have to go back to it as they're dropping less and less shows, but it's important to me when you have a piece of media that is a serialized story like this. It is important to me to have the full context of where the characters are going
right.
and how this is going to matter over the course of the entire story. Of course, we need to talk about this. Brasso immediately leaves Ferrex and shacks up. Of course, he is the one that finds a partner immediately because fucking look at him.
Somehow love finds a way in the galaxy.
Look at him. He is diligent, he is hardworking, he is patient, and he is very hot. Of
He
course,
is
someone immediately
loving.
snapped
He
him
is
up.
kind. He's so great. No, and I love that for him, honestly. And
I love that for her, for the
I
character,
for the
the other
character, yeah.
character
Well, and also
whose name I
she's
need to look up.
Talia.
Talia.
Yeah.
Talia.
Played by Claire Brown, by the way.
You beat me to it.
And then Bila is played by Laura Marcus. No, but Talia is interesting too because she has taken this group, which I'm calling Team Ferrex, by the way. So if
Okay.
I'm ever referring to anyone but Cassian, I'm referring to Team Ferrex. This is just the rest of his group. They're refugees. And she has taken them in to live with her in her triple wide trailer or quadruple wide trailer or whatever it is. There's 4 sections, I think, of it or whatever. So,
Yeah,
and
this
they all
trailer
live
is
together.
not
Yeah.
built for this many people. Wilman
No.
sleeps in a hammock outside.
Right.
Woman sleeps outside. Bix is clearly in some sort of like cordoned off area that's meant to be like a storage area.
Right.
And Brasso's the only one that gets to sleep in a bed, which barely even that.
Well, Talia can only let so many people, have a comfortable sleep.
Well, the bed's also probably not that big.
No, well, I mean, he's a big man, so
He's
I
a
mean,
huge man.
so
There's
he probably
he is
not a
a
lot of space.
wonderfully huge man.
Right. I don't think there's a lot of
Which
space for him, but I love
Brasso
that.
giving me a large hug with those huge arms could fix me, I think.
I'm dead.
That could fix a lot of my problems. I also want to point out from the trivia guide again that we see a case of asset reuse. That according to the trivia guide, the Gazanti freighter that they see in the sky, that's the same asset from The Mandalorian season 2.
Interesting.
They just reuse the same one.
Well, if you think about it, it does make sense. Like, why are all these shows not sharing assets? I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah, that's something that we don't see directly called out a lot, but it is something that is important for like productions is
right.
you ask yourself why are they making all these shows in the Rebels not in the Rebels in the Clone Wars style?
Right.
Well, it's partially because, It's for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons that I think it gets used so often is because the core assets are they can use the same ones from the Clone Wars, and especially the Bad Batch. With
No, it
it's
makes sense.
interesting which characters showed up in the Bad Batch and then turned up in the Tales of series. Almost like they had the models created in the same system and they just polished them up.
Oh, I wonder if that's the case.
I wonder if that's what happened. I wonder if that's why they keep doing this because it's cheaper. Because common misconception among people, Disney does not in fact have unlimited money to throw at Star Wars. You do have to be budget conscious, which is why Dave Filoni keeps getting to make anything he wants. Because Dave Filoni's shit will look cheap, but it will also be cheap. And so he gets to make more of it. There's one more scene. And my two little notes on that are B2 is still waiting on Cassian, which is very sad.
Oh, hmm.
He's like my cat.
Sure.
The other note that I have is that I didn't already cover is that I love that they have a little photo of Marva Andor by
Right
the
by the
comm
radio,
relay.
yeah. I just caught that this episode because when I was rewatching this just to refresh my visual memory, I was like, oh, that's cute. There's a picture of Marva right next to the phone.
It is very, very cute. There's not a whole lot. There's a lot of setup that happens with regards to this
This arc,
plot
or
line
this
in this
story, yeah.
episode, but it really starts when the Gazanti freighter shows up.
Right.
And we'll get more into it next week and the week after, such as we are going to talk about this arc. And we'll leave that sentence alone until we get further into it. What's the next arc?
Section 3, a Chandrilan wedding. On
Oh
Chandrila.
boy, let's talk about all of Mon Mothma's outfits. No, blanket statement. Every one of Mon Mothma's outfits fucking rules. Every single one of them slays. She is perfect in every way visually. It's wonderful. It's delightful. I'm putting that at the top so I can talk about the substance. Bradley, please bring us into Mon Mothma's 17 fucking costume change sequence.
On Chandrila, preparations for Lita's arranged marriage to Stekken Skulden begin, with guests and dignitaries arriving at the Mothma estate. Senator Mon Mothma maintains formal appearances, while privately uneasy about Luthen Rael's uninvited and cryptic arrival. Luthen receives word from Clea that Cassian has escaped with the TIE Avenger, but the surveillance risks further communication. As the wedding celebrations continue, Davo, Skulden, and Perrin observe their children, discussing Stekken's handling of Lita's strong will. Clea and Vel exchange pleasantries while maintaining appearances. Mothma speaks with Tay Kolma, who reveals personal struggles, including separation from his wife and business troubles. And later, Mon learns from Runai Skulden that Lita and Stekken had their first fight. Mon finds Lita in tears and offers comfort, revealing the emotional strain behind the arranged marriage.
This is finally, after years and years and years and years and years,
Uh-huh.
the first time we are ever seeing the planet of Chandrila visually in any form.
Oh, wow. Not even in Clone
We
Wars.
have only ever seen it. It only ever physically appeared in book form,
Oh, okay.
in the written form.
Right.
This is the first time we are actually on Chandrila seeing what it
awesome.
looks like. It is, according to the StarWars.com trivia article, the mountain range that envelops Santa Maria de Montserrat. It's an active Benedictine abbey in Montserrat, Spain. And the Andor cast apparently did film this on location in Montserrat, Spain.
And we'll probably bring this up multiple times, but the times that they film on location in this show are always gorgeous. They are
It's
beautiful
stunning.
places. There are
They
so many
pick-
locations in this show, and I don't have time to ever like go back and be like, oh yeah, that place on Coruscant is this museum from Spain or whatever. Like I'm never going to be able to do all of them, but like they're all so gorgeous. Please look them up and see all the locations they filmed at because like they're real.
Oh my God, yeah.
They're not just like sets like that they
When they
develop. They're
film-
just real places.
When they film somewhere for real, it is beautiful. It is utterly gorgeous.
I was gonna say Lake Como's got some competition because everybody always goes to Italy to like be like, oh, I went to go to the place where they went to Naboo or whatever. But now I feel like everybody's gonna start going to all these places in Spain that they filmed, and they're gonna be like, I went to Coruscant, I went to whatever, instead of just going to Naboo now. So
Right. It's gorgeous. It's utterly beautiful.
I love
and
it.
I love it. I love seeing Chandrila on screen for the first time. The subtitles refer to and the credits refer to Lita's little gaggle of friends as peer maids. So this
Interesting.
is clearly her bridesmaids.
Ah, okay.
You will note it, the production design of the scene, very subtle visual storytelling. And we'll fucking come back to it in the ceremony
Hmm.
because I have some goddamn opinions about this wedding ceremony and how fucking creepy it is.
Yeah.
One of Lita's two, all of the peer maids have two long braids on the
Right.
side of their head. One of Lita's is cut. So very clearly, it's like a Padawan braid type thing.
Right.
One of them was cut when she was engaged, the other is long. Just keep that in mind. That's a visual cue. On the fucking amazing tracking shot that we get when they first arrive at Chandrilla, the absolutely fucking incredible one, we get a whole host of characters, but one of them does need to be called out because the character is going to be super important. And
Later
so
on.
the
Yeah.
actor also needs to be called out.
I do have him
And that
listed,
is
so.
the character of Erskine Samaj,
Mm-hmm.
who is Mon Mothma's new assistant that she has. This is not the first time we are seeing Erskine Samaj. Erskine Samaj first appears in the Star Wars Rebels episode Secret Cargo. That will be important in episode 9.
Right.
He is Mon Mothma's assistant who has fled Coruscant with her and continues to work as her assistant throughout Star Wars Rebels. Bradley, I just need you to Wikipedia or Google or something a picture of what this guy looks like in Rebels.
Okay.
Have you looked up what
Yeah,
this
I know
guy's
what he looks like.
character?
Yeah, in Rebels, he's got that the classic Rebels helmet on and everything.
No, there's additional photos. In fact, I'm gonna drop one in the chat.
Oh,
I'm gonna actually drop a photo of
I've
him
only
with
seen
the
the one where he
helmet.
has his helmet on. Well,
This is a
there's one where he's
photo of,
sitting on the ghost ship next to
yeah,
her.
this is a photo of him with the helmet off, and this is an
Oh,
audio
okay.
medium. So
Yes.
most people listening to this will only be able to hear my voice. Google Erskine Samaj Secret Cargo and look at the image of him in the final sequence of that.
Hmm.
Deadass looks like they modeled the character off the actor playing him in Andor. Deadass looks like the same guy.
That's crazy. Which
Like,
honestly though, like if you by the way, we're talking about the actor Piero Neil May or Neil Me.
sorry about butchering the name.
Yeah, but he's hot,
Of
so
Mod Moth was
he'll get over
very
it.
hot.
He'll get
Okay,
over
good.
it.
We can talk about this man is fucking hot.
Yes.
Like
So good for
Jesus
him.
Christ. Congratulations on your face
I guess. Yeah.
being that attractive. Like god damn, this man is attractive.
Yeah, I was looking at his headshots on IMDb and I was like, oh, okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll keep looking you up. That's fine. You
I
want to
will.
just keep appearing? You can
Oh
just
my
keep being in
God.
shows. Like I would love
Keep
that,
being in
honestly.
shows. I will be looking out for this guy for
Because
sure.
technically, I mean, spoiler alert, we know he survives. So
Yeah,
don't,
he definitely
he
survives
has to
all the
survive.
way
So
up
there you
through.
go. At least up through Rebels. So as far as we know.
He does survive, yeah, all the way up through Rebels. But we don't know what happens to him after.
Yeah, do we not? I don't think we know what happens after Secret Cargo, right? Or well, maybe he's in a couple other episodes, I think, of Rebels, but we just don't know what happens after Yavin, I guess, or like the
Yeah,
Battle of the
he's
Yavin.
in a couple more episodes, but he doesn't show up again.
Right. So
Um,
who knows? But theoretically, he's her assistant forever. So that's why
yeah,
I
we
choose
don't
to
know if he
believe.
continues into the New Republic, but
I
I
choose to
have to
believe.
shout, I have to shout him out for
Yes.
existing.
For just existing. Correct.
Also, hasn't been in a whole hell of a lot
So good for him.
up
I
to
think
this
that's the
point.
one thing I like about this show is like also again, if this had each arc had been given time to breathe, I think some of these side characters would have gotten bigger roles and more stuff to do going forward in the show.
And he still has a big role. Like
He's
his
actually
role,
one of the ones that actually makes it out of the
he
first
is one of
arc
the
to do
ones,
something bigger. Yeah.
yeah, that is throughout the entire first 9 episodes.
Right.
He does play a major role in this season.
Exactly.
I do have to point out that Erskine Samaj tells Mon Mothma that one of the governors is having problems finding a parking space for his shuttle.
Okay.
Erskine Samaj will be established in a later episode to be partially Gore from Gorman.
Uh-huh.
And they give him a line about a governor having trouble landing his shuttle.
Which doesn't make sense if you're only
Doesn't make
watching this in
any
order.
sense.
Yes.
Yes. If we had covered this episode before the second block of episodes came out, I would not have called this out.
I would not even caught this.
I am
Yes.
calling out now
Yes.
that he has to be the one to be like, the governor's having trouble finding a parking space, which is diabolical.
That is the dirtiest line they could have put in this show. Like, it's so subtle and you don't notice it until you watch those back 3 episodes because that's diabolical. Just
And you're like,
it truly is.
what the fuck, Tony? Why would you do this?
Like, let's fuck up his character even more by giving him even more trauma.
I need to know more about this man.
I know.
This is one of the great losses of it only being, the whole thing being truncated down is for all we got of him. And he's easily one of my favorite characters.
He's definitely a standout for sure.
He's definitely a standout, especially in the back arc, and especially in spoilers for my opinion of episode 9. Episode 9 may have eclipsed out The Last Jedi for being my favorite piece of Star Wars media ever put on screen ever. So
Oof.
much made for me specifically that it actually is kind of painful.
Okay.
Literally to the point that they practically turn to the fucking camera in episode 9 and say my name. It is insane how much episode 9 of this show is made for me specifically.
That's wild.
It's crazy. But even with all of that in this character, I wish we'd gotten more of him. I think the only other scene that we get for this is like the party sequence.
Yeah, there's a couple scenes. I mean, yeah, we don't really need to talk about Mon being like, "Oh no, Luthen's here," because it's just like
I
whatever.
do like I do like that the tracking shot on
Yeah,
this breaks when Luthen appears.
right.
That is something that's done
Hmm.
intentionally. That only when she physically sets eyes on Luthen
Right.
does this break. And
He
I do love
he
that a
breaks
lot.
everything.
He breaks the flow because he's an unexpected guest.
Yeah, I
She
love
didn't
that.
invite him.
No,
She didn't want him and Clea here, and they came because of Davos Golden. So she's now off her game. I like how Perrin in the party sequence clearly still doesn't like this.
right.
He's clearly still not happy with this.
But
They
I
have
do
a
love how he connects though with Skolden, and he's like, so is your boy strong enough to handle my daughter, basically? And he's like, nope, not at all.
well, they're also doing the like it's a very male thing
Hmm.
to talk about like a younger woman getting married to a man this way to be like, "Oh, haha, I hope he can handle her."
Right,
I hope it's this whole thing about this trope of straight men like not getting along with their wives,
right. Which
which
clearly in
which
this
is a very
society though
common
probably
thing.
happens a lot.
Well, this society is very patriarchal. And
Right,
it's also with high society in the arranged marriage, one of the things you run into with arranged marriages is you get married at an age before you like grow into adulthood and can
right,
understand how the dynamics of a relationship are going to work. And throughout history, we see cases where, there's a marriage for political convenience and it does wind up working out really fucking well. If it works out well, the couple can be very powerful as a unit. But if it doesn't work out, it can be really messy.
hmm,
I like that. So I like that even behind the very patriarchal society, like, oh, haha, you see this all the time with the straight weddings I've had to attend. It's all like, man, it's your last night of freedom.
right.
It's the old ball and chain, yada, yada. Even between that, you can tell parents still doesn't fucking like this.
Yeah,
There's so much. I read The Mask of Fear before I watched this, and I thought it gave me way more context into why Perrin is the way he is. That is one thing I will say. I highly recommend reading The Mask of Fear if you like Andor, just because, especially for the Mon and Perrin, it will add so much context. I also love how Luthen is fishing for intel.
oh, when he's talking to some random guy and his twink son, yes, that is the funniest bit.
The military twink. Yeah.
Yes, that was hilarious because one, well, it's two, there's two coins to why this is, or two sides of the coin why this is funny, right? So the one is that he is he's in the Imperial Navy from a very wealthy family, right? So he probably doesn't see a lot of action or does a lot of hard labor. He's very clean looking, right? And he's obviously like a little fucking twink. Like he's not, what is he gonna do, right?
What
Like,
he clearly is like it's a thing of you go to your military service and they put
uh-huh,
you in a cushy assignment,
right.
but they probably are putting you in an NCO position. That is probably what is going on here because the Imperial Navy is not going to put some nepo baby doing his 5 years of military service
Exactly.
kind of thing in any real position of power.
No.
They're going to give you some random cushy assignment
Sure.
like your job is to be the lieutenant to
Yeah,
the guy on the starbase in the
sure.
middle of nowhere for 3 years and then you come home and you do your you take over the family business.
Well, it's like back when we were on what was that planet called? Aldani.
Eldani,
It
yeah.
was the same kind of thing, right? The family, the guy who was in charge, the lieutenant that was in charge or whatever, his family was very like, ugh, why are we still here on this boring ass planet? Like, because it's safe, because they're rich, clearly, some kind of rich kind of family. He comes from affluent, whatever. And it's like, oh, let's keep them away from the real war, the real dirty stuff, and
Right.
just serve our little time and then we can retire and do whatever the fuck we want, right? So I do love that they did that, but what I love more is that Luthen is like kind of being like, "Oh, so what have you heard? What are they doing?
Where
Like,
is
where are they
everyone shipping
going?
out
Yeah,
to?
yeah, yeah. Where
He's
is
here to
shipping going?"
work. He's here to work.
He's like, "That's so
Clea,
fascinating."
Clea can't work, which is very interesting because she says in early scenes like that she can't get a signal out,
Right.
that they can't risk it. So she basically has nothing to do, and
But
so
drink.
decides to just drink.
But drink.
And I need to say that Clea was a breakout character in season 1.
Yep.
She's amazing in the second season.
I do love her a lot.
Her
Honestly.
whole attitude in the back half of this episode where she's like, well, there's nothing I can do, so I'm just going to knock back Chandrillian drinks.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I love her interactions with Vel too, because I feel
Oh
like
my God.
a part of me wants to be that annoying kind of person to be like, they've definitely fucked before.
So they've definitely hooked up.
Yes.
That has happened at least
I believe
once.
that 100%. And then Vel
And they
probably
hate
turned
each
her
other.
down at some point. Yeah,
They do
yeah.
not like each other.
No, they are
They have
toxic
definitely
lesbians.
hooked up.
No, it's
They
perfect.
have
It's amazing.
No, Belle's little eye flick
Yes.
when Clea, who fucking knows. She knows what's going on with Val. And
Yes.
she's like, we're just two single ladies checking out the prospect.
Yep.
And then Val flicks her eyes up and down Clea.
Yeah. No.
Beautiful.
Cinematic gold. It
Beautiful.
really was. It was so funny. And I love that. And I love that history between them, even though it's not there out loud, it's there. It's subtext. It has to be. And I
love it.
I will fight anybody on that they have hooked up before.
Speaking of people who have definitely hooked up in the past, let's talk about Takeoma.
Okay, there you go. I was going to say,
So
that's a
we
great
find out-
transition. Yeah.
We find out his business is fucked. His wife left him.
Eugh,
They're
yikes.
separated. But I do want to point out an acting choice in this scene that the actor makes. And I am going to look up the actor's name here because I am about to really praise a choice that he is making.
Okay.
God, there's so many fucking
I know, it's hard to go through the
characters.
list.
Where is he on the list?
Ben
Ben
Miles
Miles
there you go.
is
Okay.
playing Takeoma. Did you notice on rewatch that when he's having his conversation with Mon, his words are slurring slightly?
I didn't notice it the first time because I think in the second episode or maybe the third episode, Perrin's like, "Oh yeah, he was getting sloppy.
He was
or whatever
hammered.
at the
He had to
party."
be
Yeah.
carried. And this is something that's established in episode 1 that they're going to drink for like 3 days straight, which is,
love that.
speaking as someone who has done that, very hard to do.
Sure.
It is very difficult to have multiple nights in a row where you're drinking heavily, and then you also have to do something during the day that requires so these people are drinking, and then they have to get up and do wedding ceremony stuff, drinking again, and then having to do wedding ceremony stuff. Physically, as an adult, this is very hard to do.
Sure. And he's a man of
Like-
a certain age, we'll
Yeah,
say.
he's not
you know?
young.
So
But the actor, Ben Miles, has made the choice to slur slightly, and you can't really tell the first time you watch it, but when you go back and watch it again, he's clearly several drinks in at this point.
so good.
It's such a good acting choice for this scene when he talks to Mon. But then Mon is called away, and she finds her daughter crying. Lita says her problem with her new husband is that he's a child, to which my note is, you're both children.
Which
This is fucked up. This should not be happening.
no, but it's so funny that they do that because it's like it's the play also on that girls mature faster than boys kind of thing. Like it's the whole like she
Because
sees
they
him
have
as,
to.
Like,
Because
yeah,
this
it's
is
so
a
funny.
patriarchal culture that treats her as a second-class citizen to
It's
be
amazing.
bartered away. She has to be, like, she has to mature faster than this boy is so fucking privileged. He has the privilege to not mature.
Right.
Of course he's acting like a fucking child. He doesn't have to act like an adult.
I just love it because she's just like, oh, I want to like hold his hand, and he's like, no, I don't want to hold your hand. Like, I just love that they're
so
problems.
This is the thing too, and I need to bring this up. It hurts Mon so much
Yeah.
seeing Lita in pain, But Mon can't relate to this. And it's not really in the show. We find out more about it in like The Mask of Fear, especially in The Mask of Fear, which very specifically talks about Mon and Perrin's early relationship. That Lita got into this because she wanted to get into this and
Right.
is now disappointed this isn't what she wanted. Mon got into this because she was told she had to. And her early romantic relationship with Perrin, where they kind of tried, Mask of Fear confirms is out of spite. That they briefly tried a romantic relationship because neither of them wanted this. And so they did it kind of in spite of the tradition. We're going to try actually liking each other. And that obviously doesn't work, but they do work very well as partners. It's just not romantically. But I found it really interesting choice that all Mon can say is, I'm sorry. She can sympathize with Lita in this moment, but she can't empathize with her. She
Yeah.
doesn't know the experience of what Lita's feeling.
And it sucks too because like I think had she not had to go through with this arrangement, like she would have let Lita do whatever she wanted to do marriage wise. Like she would have let her do whatever, right? She wouldn't have cared if she married somebody. She wouldn't have cared. She was like Vel, where she didn't marry anybody, later on. Like she could have done
Or
whatever she wanted to do.
Or if Lita did really want this, they would have found someone that was actually better for her.
Right. Somebody that she would have
That
probably connected with more.
this
Yeah.
was a marriage that was made out of political convenience and to help cover up Mon Mothma's giant financial crimes.
Right.
This was not made, and this is part of the tragedy of the Mothma family is that
Hmm.
Lita, Mon and Perrin care so much about their daughter, but they're trapped in this world of politics and this world of rebellion. And Lita, the child, is the one who suffers as a result of it. And so people who are mad at Lita for the way she acts towards her mom, you guys got to keep in mind partially that Lita is getting absolutely shat on by the situation. And unlike Perrin and Mon, she has no say in it. She really has no say in what her mom does. So my final note on the Mon stuff comes from the credits. I just need to point out that the in-laws that Mon talks to in the very opening scene are revealed by the credits to be named Uncle Sordo and Aunt Squidna.
Okay.
That is it.
That you just like the names.
I just needed to point out these characters are named Uncle Sordo and Aunt Squidna.
It is kind of funny. I don't quite understand it, but it is.
I don't care. It's fucking hilarious as hell. Also, because I am jumping around in my notes,
Mhm.
I did miss one in the Cassian stuff. I realized it this time. I'm bringing up here. The
Okay.
password to get the TIE fighter is Kafrene.
Okay.
That is a reference to the Rings of Kafrene, which are the first location we ever see Cassian Andor in season.
Oh, I
in
knew that sounded
Rogue
familiar
One.
and I couldn't quite place what it was. And I was like, what does the password mean? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
It's the Rings of Kafrene where we see Cassian for the first time ever in release order.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Okay, we're done with the Mon Mothma stuff. We're gonna break 2 hours.
Section 4, a chilling Imperial plan. At the remote Malvine Divide, Director Krennic leads a covert Imperial meeting with Deidre and Major Partagaz in attendance. After an informative film on the planet Gorman, Krennic goes on to propose a plan to exploit the planet's rare mineral, calcite, crucial for the reactor lens coating of weapons. Despite the environmental risks and the massive population, the Empire moved forward with a plan. Officials from the Ministry of Enlightenment propose a smear campaign to vilify the Gormans and sway the galaxy's public opinion so that they look hostile to the Empire's encroachments on their planet. Later, Deidre and Krennic talk, and she suggests in engineering a insurgency to justify Imperial occupation.
A solid 1/4 of this entire episode is old white people,
Hmm.
also Dedra, who is the only woman in the room,
The only woman in the room. I caught that too. Yep.
having a conversation
Hmm.
about doing a planetary genocide.
Casual conversation, yes. Well, not
Yes.
casual. It's a boardroom meeting. It's
It's a
literal,
boardroom
like,
meeting
yes.
about quote unquote energy independence.
Independence. Yeah, what was it? Energy Initiative?
The energy independence being a key initiative of
Key initiative.
Emperor.
Yes.
Nobody ever calls him Palpatine
Right.
in this scene. They always refer to him
They
as
just
the Emperor.
Right.
This will be important in episode 9 that no one ever refers to him by his name. In season 1, the senators refer to him a little bit by his name.
Okay.
But in this season, they really don't call the Emperor by his name.
'Cause he's the emperor.
Yeah, this entire sequence is amazing. This is incredible. I love this so much. Let's talk about it. I need to bring up the Malphine Divide is new.
Okay.
We've never seen it before. And that's not green screen in the window behind them.
Okay.
That is a hand-painted backdrop that was
Oh,
touched
gorgeous.
up digitally by ILM. So what you're seeing on screen is pretty much what the actors were working in.
Nice. In the beginning is where Krennic lets everybody know, like, okay, if you're here, you're a part of this thing and no one else is. I don't care if your boss is not here, he's not a part of it. He doesn't understand, he's not cleared to understand what's going on here. You're here for a reason, and this is the tight group of people who will only know about this.
There is a real-life historical conference that is very famous, mostly because of the movie Conspiracy. That was a 2001 movie starring Kenneth Branagh and Stanley Tucci. And also, crazy amount of actors were in this movie. Fun fact, Tom Hiddleston, this was one of his first film roles, was the movie Conspiracy in 2001. This movie is about a real-life historical conference called the Wannsee Conference. And the Wannsee Conference was basically a large amount of Nazi officials met in a Berlin suburb to basically plan the entire Holocaust. They
Oh, wow.
sat down and they worked out in essentially a boardroom
Right.
how they were going to pull this off. And the reason we know about it is because they were all told, you cannot take any notes about this meeting. This did not happen.
Right.
We are not taking notes about it. We are not doing any of this. And everyone took notes about this meeting, which is how we know it happened.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Because everyone went away and took notes about this meeting. But that was a specific element of the Wannsee conference. Was we were meeting to discuss
Right.
this quote unquote final solution. How are we going to pull this off? And you were not supposed to take notes, and everybody took notes. And it played out pretty much exactly like it plays out. And Tony Gilroy has explicitly stated that the conference in the Malthine Divide to plan basically how do we kill all the Gormans so we can get their stuff
Right.
is a direct reference to the Wannsee Conference in real history. So unavoidably, we do have to specifically talk about the Nazis because they are directly doing this conference in the show. Subtlety is for cowards. I warned you we were going to talk about this conference.
I love it, honestly. They did such a good job. I
So,
think it's also like,
by the way, I do recommend the movie Conspiracy.
okay,
If you are interested in these scenes specifically, I do recommend the movie Conspiracy.
I also love that Krennic decided to start said meeting with a video documentary.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that. Put him in the video because we do need to talk about the fact that director Krennic is here.
Okay.
That should be a big clue what this meeting is actually about. And yes, that is Ben Mendelsohn reprising his role as director Krennic.
Yes.
And he does say that he claims not even Yularen or Tarkin, but he name drops Yularen and Tarkin do not know about this meeting.
Right. He's like, they'll find out when it's appropriate for them to find out.
When the Emperor tells them.
Right.
So once again, we're seeing the Emperor playing his people off each other. That he told Krennic, go do this meeting, and claims that Yularen and Tarkin don't know about it. Okay, now let's talk about this old school fucking newsreel
Sure.
that they do about Gorman.
I like how the focus of said video documentary is to be like, look how beautiful the planet is. This is where all the silks from the galaxy come from. It's these spiders, they make the silk and da da da. It's like all this, it's super really nice. And then he stops it like halfway through the thing and he's like, all right, so that was the planet that we're gonna destroy. So
Spiders with ant heads, by the way.
right.
And there's a real big close-up shot of one of these spiders.
I do love that like they do this video, but then like he goes on to be like, it's of great interest to the Empire, but not the silk. Like he's like, spiders aren't the only thing that's unique to this planet.
Spiders aren't the most unique thing to Gorman. Okay, so his monologue that he gives. Krennic gives multiple like tiny little monologues over the course of this scene.
Sure.
The course of this sequence as we go through each scene a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Mendelsohn is having more fun than I have ever seen anyone have in their life
Oh, he's so good in this scene.
delivering these monologues. Every smarmy little line that he gives is flawless and beautiful. Ben Mendelsohn, I think, in an interview might have specifically used the word fruitier
Oh,
to describe Krennic in these scenes.
interesting.
This is a younger Krennic. Like, this is several years before Rogue One. So he hasn't mellowed out to the restrained level that we see him
Right.
in Rogue One. But
He's also
Ben
not as
Mendelsohn
jaded by Rogue.
is specifically playing him
Yeah.
much more like smarmy than he is because he gives speeches about energy independence is so important. He says specifically with regards to energy independence and power like structures that the emperor's agenda for it is quote unlimited power end quote.
I do love that.
The script is so fucking good.
It's just the echoes of everything he says, and it's just amazing how
You
they did
don't
that.
even catch it the first. I didn't catch it the first time. Somebody had to point out to me.
Yeah.
He says unlimited power, which is of course a reference to the oft memed line from Revenge of the Sith,
Right.
unlimited power, where Palpatine is shooting bolts of lightning. It's crazy. I love this man.
So he brings up Calicite,
Yes.
and the doctor or the scientist or whoever explains that there is this mineral that is underneath the planet that they need. And Partagaz is like, wait a minute, you guys want this mineral, but wouldn't that be like super invasive to like the planet? Like that doesn't seem like a smart idea. And then the one of the officers is like, yeah, it'll cause like probably a problem with the local population and whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But one of the other guys is like, no, if we start drilling on this planet, the planet will literally become unstable. Like it is unlivable. It'll be like destroying the core of the planet. It'll ruin it'll affect the core in a way that will cause the planet to become unstable, thus probably exploding, I'm guessing is what they're kind of alluding to, or it just being uninhabitable at some point.
So, what this meeting turns out to be about is the fact that they're going to have to kill or otherwise remove most of the planet's
The
population.
population, right?
And they need a way to spin this because if they just go, if the Empire were to just go blowing up a planet,
Right.
particularly Gorman is not in the Outer Rim. Gorman is a major fucking planet. It is a huge part of the galactic economy.
Right.
It is a huge part of how it operates. It has a lot of sympathy. It's like on the level of Alderaan or Chandrila, or maybe not to the same level as Corellia, but it's on that level. Like they're not talking about blowing up some random village in
No.
France. They're talking about basically nuking Paris.
Right. It's like if you
How
had
do
told people
we
like, let's
how do
get
we
rid of the
make
fashion
that work?
capital of the world. Like, let's
Yes.
just completely bomb it, basically. Like
Hmm.
that would be people would be upset. People would be
Hmm.
very mad about
And
just
that's
that
the
alone. Yeah.
problem in
Right.
this meeting. And the propagandist in one of the creepiest fucking scenes in this episode. The propagandists then stand up and explain the newsreel we just saw to where they talk about how number one, if you watch that newsreel, it talks about like Gorman pride. It talks about Gormans being like very proud of their culture, very proud of their planet, very proud of that. And the propagandists explain, well, don't the Gormans seem a little bit haughty? Don't they seem like they think they're better than you?
They
And
always
then
seemed a little stuck up. Yeah.
remember I mentioned the close-up shot of the spider
Right.
and how the newsreel focus is so much on spiders and how it literally ends with a smirking gore with the case full of spiders. And the propagandists are like, spiders are such a good metaphor. It's such a good image to tie to the gore because they're also kind of creepy and weird.
Right.
Nobody likes spiders. Everyone's uncomfortable. It's so fucking insidious. You don't even notice that the newsreel is doing it until
No.
they point out.
And I love that like they're going into the spiel and then Krennic cuts them off, but he's like subtly winks at them like he's like impressed with like what they've come up with in like this short like second of a time. Like he's like, okay, we get it. Wink, wink. Like that was good. Like good job, guys. Like
Because that's part of how they're going to sell this is
oh,
they're going to sell it as the gore needed to be put down, essentially. That they
right.
got too big for their britches and they needed to be cut down to size. And
Yeah.
that's how they're going to sell it. They're going to subtly villainize the gore so that when they turn around and ultimately perpetrate this atrocity, that it's going to be able to be justified before the galaxy.
Right. People are going to be agreeing with the Empire, basically. You got to make it so that, like, oh, what they're doing actually makes sense because the Gormans were so bad or whatever. It's justified. Everything's justified because
Mhm.
they were not a nice people. They were not a
They
good
were
people. Yeah.
They were so haughty. They were
Yeah.
so full of themselves. They
It's their
really
own fault.
deserved
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they brought it on themselves. You know,
Exactly.
if they hadn't been so stuck up, we wouldn't have had to fucking kill them all.
Hmm. And I like when later on in the episode, they cut to a scene where they're all kind of eating lunch, basically, like, or they're getting snacks, like halfway through the meeting. And then some of the
Oh yeah,
random
let's talk about
officers,
the goddamn
yeah,
pastries.
yeah. So some of the officers are eating and they're like talking, and then like one of the officers was like, he's like, why don't they just like stage a natural disaster and call it a day? Like, it's like we could just blame it on, I don't know, like they did
Hmm.
in Rogue One, where they're like, oh, it's just a mining incident that destroyed Jeddah. Like, no, like that was the Death Star that killed it. Like, so it's very interesting where they're like, yeah, we could just do that. And then I think that one of the twink officers was just like, yeah, that gets really hard to do, like to stage
We've
because that
gamed
gets
that
out of
out.
control. Yeah.
They say that like we've
Yeah,
gamed
we've already
out
thought of
different
that. Yeah.
scenarios,
Hmm.
which is insane. And they also, I will point out that so Partagas is a weird little conversation that feels like it's just an aside
Yeah, but it's
with
important to the plot. Yeah.
one of the
Hmm.
naval officers who tells him that there's mining equipment that's already getting ready to be shipped onto
Ready
the
to go.
planet, and that it can be shipped on once it's ready to go. It can be shipped on very quickly, and also that they are building a new armory in Palmo City. That will be very important to the rest of the plot, and it's
Right.
very quick. That they mention all the way up here that they are going to build that they're already constructing this armory.
And it's
They're
such a
starting to
throwaway.
construct it.
Like you think it's like this weird throwaway conversation, but it's like it's actually really significant, obviously moving forward. But it's also if we now that we know more about it, Partagas's reaction to it is actually interesting because Palmo is essentially, like you said before, it's basically Paris. Like it's basically like this kind of like
Mhm.
center point of fashion, like the place where like there's all these shops and things. Like it's a very nice place. But then when he says, "Oh, we're building an armory," in this essentially art capital of the world or of the world there, then it's like, whoa, why are you building an armory in this really super peaceful place?
And we're going to see in the next episode, they're dropping it right next to basically the center of the capital.
Right.
That they're not putting it on the outskirts. It's there.
It's
It's
there
like
in town. Yeah.
it's there in town.
Yeah.
And like I went to college partially in Savannah, which is a very old kind of artistic town.
Hmm.
It's a very artsy sort of town, but it's very like old. It's got its own specific culture. And yes, there are military bases in Savannah, but they're kind of outside of the downtown area.
Right. You don't put them in the middle of town square.
You if somebody dropped a military base in the middle of downtown Savannah, I might
Right.
have some questions.
And not only a military base, a literal, we'll get to it later, but like a skyscraper looking motherfucking
Oh
thing.
yeah. When we
Like,
see the exterior, like the establishing shots
yes.
of Palmo in the third episode block when the armory is complete, it jets out of this
It's
city.
just there, like
It's
randomly. Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is this huge armory.
Amazing.
I have a proposed title for this arc.
Okay. What is it?
Deidre accidentally becomes important at work against her will.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what do you mean? The whole arc? Okay, no, you mean like this plot. Yes.
Or the whole little plot, yes.
Yes. Okay, that's why I was
The
confused.
plot in which Deidre becomes important at work against her will.
She seems to do this frequently. Or I guess she just becomes more. I think it's Partagas's fault, actually. I think he sees the potential in her, and then when she's just casually bringing up to Krennic, like, nah, propaganda is not the only thing you need.
Well,
Like,
she doesn't casually bring it up. Krennic forces her to bring it up because she doesn't want to say it.
right,
Because she's not comfortable with this. Not because it's like morally wrong, but just because it's outside of her scope.
right. Well,
And the
she's
problem,
technically she's dealt with insurgency before,
yeah, it went really fucking badly.
and it went badly, and she didn't want to deal with
She
it
didn't
because
want to do it
she almost got
again.
fired. Yeah,
But Krennic saw what happened at Ferrix
right,
and was like, I want this woman's opinion. And what she basically tells him is we need to arm a local insurgency group so
right,
that we can then justify cracking down on them.
right.
Which is totally not a real thing that has ever happened in real life.
Diabolical.
Not happened at all. It is totally fictional, and there's no real life inspiration for politics in Star Wars. And that definitely came out of nowhere and has no relation to any history of any country. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, I was gonna say
Mhm.
because we can get more into it at a later date when it becomes more relevant in a
We
certain
will.
arc. But
We
yes,
will talk significantly
yes,
more about the Imperial manipulation of Gorman and how
right,
that plays out over the course of this show. Very clearly to me, watching the first 9 episodes, that the plot that they decided. So when Tony Gilroy had to truncate this down to one season, a lot of plot lines got cut.
right,
A lot of them didn't end properly. A lot of them got cut out. A lot of characters kind of disappear over time and we don't really know what happened to them. Very clearly, they knew that the Gorman plot needed to work.
Right. And you had to kind of seed that early. Yeah.
So they put a lot of time and a lot of effort and moved a lot of characters into place to be involved in the Gore plot who may not have previously been planned to be involved in that plot.
Hmm.
And a lot of things revolve around this plot. And even though some of the other plots I think kind of disappear or fall flat or don't really work, the Gorman massacre and everything that leads up to it is handled perfectly. 10 out of 10, no notes. One, well, there will probably be notes as we go along, but like a 10, that is 10 out of 10. The way that they spend the next 8 episodes building up Gorman and how it's going to play out. And it starts here in this conference room with this real life inspired boardroom meeting, gaming out basically how they're going to do this. And then it works. And we get to see the tension build up and build up and build up. And I don't want to spoil too much, but like, I don't think, message each other a lot during the watching of episodes, Star
Right.
Wars
Because
media.
we try to keep
We
our
tend to
reactions
message
fresh. Yeah.
after, but you and I were like, we were actively watching episode 8 at the same
Yeah.
time
It was pretty intense.
and texting each other like, I am so stressed out. All right. Well, that's all my notes.
I was going to say that's
Bradley?
the episode. First, you already said who the writer of the episode was, which is Tony
The writer
Gilroy.
is Tony Gilroy personally.
But you did say you wanted to know who the director was. Now, I will say the director is the same director for the first 6 episodes. So that's going to make our lives really easy.
Yay. I don't have to remember to do the who wrote
So
this
we'll
episode.
we'll
Who
mostly
directed
talk
this
about him
episode?
right here, and then that way we'll know from now on he's kind of that's it. His name is Ariel Kleinman. Worked on the first 6 episodes, like I said, of season 2. He's an Australian director and filmmaker based in London. He is known for his first feature film, which was called Partisan.
Okay.
It's a fun little Easter egg right there, which almost starred Oscar Isaacs, but didn't. So that was just a
Nice.
weird fact that I found. But yeah, so this guy, that film he did called Partisan is about soldiers and war. And, so it's a very, like, he's very much in the whole war film kind of esque
You
thing.
can fucking tell.
Yeah. So it's very obvious that that's why he was picked for this. So,
He also directed an episode of Yellow Jackets.
oh, there you go.
He directed an episode in season 1.
Oh, then I've seen it because I've seen the first season. So.
Okay. He directed season 1, episode 8.
Okay, I love that. Any final thoughts on the first episode of the 3-episode arc?
I do think the first episode of the first arc is a lot of setup.
Yes.
It's a lot of setting up where this is going to go. I think this is why it sort of needed to be sort of experienced in 3-episode arcs. I've already talked about my feelings on that as a viewer. I mean, it's good. It continues to be good. It continues to be the same quality of Andor
Right.
that we've always seen. And that you can definitely tell where cuts were made. You can definitely tell where they kind of wanted this show to be. Tony Gilroy directly calls it Game of Thrones like. You could tell they wanted to be the show and the show to be in for the long haul, and they had to cut it down. That's not an easy task. It's a very unenviable task to have to take something that was planned to be something else and cut it down to something shorter. And I think that what this episode sets up and what I think this season is going to do really well is that it's going to keep the core themes of what Tony Gilroy and his team wanted to explore intact. And I do think we see even as early as the first sequence of the first episode of this season, coming back to the central theme of rebellions are built on hope and rebellions are built on small acts of rebellion. And I think that's very cool to see from the get-go. And also, subtlety is for cowards. Bradley, what are your final thoughts on episode 1?
My final thoughts are just I think I agree with you. It's mostly set up. I do like how it does go between the different mini arcs, we'll call them. I think this one's split up pretty well. Like I said, it might be more difficult moving forward to do this kind of analysis this way, but I think so far it's split up pretty evenly. You don't see this a lot in television where it's like basically 4 major kind of plot points, but what I like is that at least, well, maybe the Imperial one is kind of more a C plot, technically kind of woven in just to kind of introduce us to the idea. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really good. I liked it. I think these episodes are movies basically, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
And not that because it's bad, I just think it's just too long. Like if I'm gonna watch a movie, just let me watch a movie. You know what I mean? At that point, I would be curious to again put all 3 of these together as like a movie. I mean, they are kind of in acts if you think about it. This was act
They're
one.
3-act structure.
Yeah,
Every single one of
it's the
these
same.
arcs is 3-act structure.
It is.
That
And yeah, it's great.
I can actually, it's weird because it doesn't exactly follow traditional film 3-act structure,
Right.
because it also has to have TV structure.
Right.
It also has, it knows that episodes have to play out a certain way internally. And so it's very interesting to look at from a writing perspective. Sorry, did you have anything else
No, that
for
was
final
it.
thought?
It's great.
Okay. Next week, we are covering Andor Season 2, Episode 2. What the fuck is it called?
Sagrona Tima,
Sagrona Tima.
which
Oh, good.
we'll find out what that
We'll
means.
find out what that means. Ah, Plug-ables.
Yes.
Bradley works on a bunch of reality TV shows and is, in fact, actively working on a new season of one right now that I don't think we can talk about yet.
No, but I can talk about a new show that'll come out during the coverage of Andor.
Ooh,
It'll come out
exciting.
July 13th.
Well, very quickly, before you do that,
Okay.
you can find shows that Bradley has worked on, such as later seasons of Married to Medicine, The Circle, seasons 5 and 6 on Netflix, Temptation Island, and Queen's Court is going to be relevant to what Bradley is about to say.
Yes, my new show is called King's Court, a spinoff of Queen's Court. So just reverse the celebrities. Instead of women finding love, it's men finding love, celebrity men finding love with regular people. And yeah, it's coming out July 13th on Bravo.
I think, and we haven't, because he's still in France and we still need to finish Temptation Island.
Yes.
But I think that our friend Chris from Dark Side Divas, and also my very good friend in real life, and I are planning to watch King's Court.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think we are going to try to set it up to where we watch King's Court. So
Okay. Interesting.
I would personally like to watch a show that Bradley's made that's not Temptation Island. Listen, the benefit to this is that I've seen the trailer for King's Court.
Okay.
Those men are hot as fuck.
There you go.
So if I'm going to watch this show,
Uh-huh.
I might as well watch a show full of men who are hot as
Why
fuck.
not?
Oh, I remain very proud of the fact that you worked on these shows and they exist, and that is an achievement for any piece of art to exist, regardless of the quality of that art. Even getting a show made is incredible in this day and age. It is a minor miracle. And I will continue to bag on Temptation Island, even as I'm impressed that your team made it exist. You can also find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast For Light and Dice, an actual play TTRPG podcast set in the High Republic. It is currently on hiatus in part because Chris is still in France, but that should be coming back with new episodes once we've had a chance to sit down and figure out how to make the scheduling work again once he is back. If you want to see me writing thriller stories and mystery stories and crime stories that have absolutely no politics in them whatsoever, and I don't have any personal opinions, and that did not bleed at all into the text, there is a lot of Beach House Studios news that happened this week. There's a ton. Bradley knows some of it, but not all of it. So very quickly, books 1 and 2 of the series have broken free of Amazon jail. You now no longer have to give money to Amazon to read these books.
Awesome.
As of recording this episode, I have finished uploading the first 2 books to Kobo.com. So if you want to give your money to something that is not Amazon, you can find the first 2 books on Kobo. Now, the trade-off is the books are no longer on Kindle Unlimited. They are also not on Kobo's exclusive service. I'm not making them exclusive to anywhere to a subscription service. You do actually have to pay money for them. But they are now on Kobo. You can purchase them. In other news that happened this week, the 3rd book is now available for pre-order. It's been available on pre-order for a long time on Amazon, but it specifically has the release date updated to the accurate release date on Amazon. And as of listening to this episode, the cover has been revealed. You can see that on Amazon. Now, it's stuck in Amazon jail for 3 months after release.
Sure.
That book is coming out May 31st. So it will break Amazon jail September 1st, at which point it will be uploaded to the other sites. But the book is called Threesome, which is the second most amazing title in the entire series.
Shocking.
I know. It does not mean what you think it means. The context is way different than that title would imply, but ARC readers have their copies, and that book will be available on Amazon on May 31st and everywhere in September. And hopefully the fourth book will be coming out around September as well, because it's all written. The mainline 5 books are done.
Nice.
I'm just editing 4 and 5 right now to get it ready for release. So that was a lot of news that came out about this series, but it is trucking along. We are coming close to having, and I did not have to truncate my 5-season plan.
Unlike some other writers.
Unlike some other people that had to truncate their 5-season plan, I did not have to truncate mine. So you're getting the 5-season experience. It was actually 3 seasons in the original show Bible, and I had to extend it to 5. But that's an entirely other conversation in a different episode that we're not going to do for a while. So, all right. Well, that's everything that I currently have. Bradley's just giving me this look like, shut the fuck up and tell me to run the socials. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post full episodes of this podcast. If you like the podcast, you can also rate us and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. I was still getting up at 6:50 in the morning, trying to cram all my really bad mental health at the time into a tiny little box and go listen to people scream slurs at me for an hour or for 8 hours a day. It was fucking great. And I still had to stay up because if I didn't, then some piece of shit on twitter.com is going to drop a damned untagged spoiler of Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian Season 2.